Ladies and gentlemen, I am known as Mr. Vicious. Remo Vinci! Now the time has begun. What's up, everybody? Want to thank y'all for tuning in. I appreciate all the love. But before we get into my conversation with Delaine, I just want to give a little insight. I did have some other things going on, some prior arrangements for the day. So we did have to cut this interview short. So for those of you that are tuning in for the first time, I apologize that this is not a complete interview. This is only going to be part one of my conversation with Delaine and his introduction into what we're doing here. So enjoy part one, everybody. And I apologize for the quick exit. But like I said, life gets in the way sometimes, and I appreciate y'all's understanding. And let's get into the episode. Okay. What's up, everybody? This is Mr. Vicious Remo Vinci, and I am back with another vicious interview. I might be changing the name of this interview series coming up shortly. We might be rebranding a little bit just to give y'all a heads up. But for now, we're going to stick with the vicious interviews. And today I got a very special one for y'all. For fans of the Dro Bro Show, this guy probably looks familiar to you. But this is Delaine Barham. Some of you know him as Grim. I call him Skins every now and then. This is a longtime friend and brother of mine. Grim, go ahead and tell him what's up, my brother.
How's it going, guys? Just happy to be here. Happy to finally get this episode out. We had a little scheduling issues between the two of us, so we're finally able to get this out. Do you want to give a shout out to Chad? He's looking forward to our spiritual one we're working up towards.
Awesome.
Just telling me today.
Well, that's great. That's good to hear. And I'm glad you mentioned that because for those of you that have been keeping tabs, we are starting another show coming up here soon. And it's going to be basically about spiritual journeys. I have friends like you'll soon see now here with Delaine here that come from all different walks of life and all different types of faith backgrounds. And we're all kind of searching for the same kind of stuff, and we're all trying to get to the same place, right? So we just have different journeys that we go about it, and I think that it's important for us to understand those journeys, to respect them, and to appreciate them from each other, and to not be disrespectful or judgmental towards them, to be more understanding about each other's journeys. So Grim, or Delaine, as he is more better known, is going to be one of the mainstay hosts of that show with me. And I wanted to give him an opportunity to give his testimony and to give his story and give himself a little bit of an introduction to you guys and to for anybody else that may be wondering, you know, when they start listening to some of our episodes of the spiritual journeys and they want to get a little backstory on some of us. So I wanted to provide Delaine with this opportunity here. So first of all, before we get into any of the deep, heavy stuff, I want to talk about like when you first came here to Colorado. We talked about it before on the Dro Bro Show a little bit, one of our first episodes. But I want to talk about your faith journey and as it related to you as a child. What did that look like for you and your household?
So for me growing up, my grandma, my dad's mom, was my Sunday school teacher. So if you can imagine, she was a big part of the church. It was a Baptist church. So I don't want to say, well, I mean, it was forced. Okay. I mean, I didn't have a choice. I remember one time my dad said that's my mom. She's your Sunday school teacher. You don't have a choice. And so we had to go every Wednesday and Sunday, twice on Sundays. Of course, at the time I loved Jesus. When I was a kid, I used to say, oh, Jesus lives at grandma's house, because they used to ask me, and she had this picture of Jesus on the wall, and I'd always say that. And that's a memory that sticks out to me. That's the first time I got baptized, was there. And actually, there's a funny story about it, very unique to me and my upbringing. So And I didn't find this out till I was 19 years old. So my mom told me that my grandma and the pastor of that church, they had had dreams, and they had been having dreams of a special child who was going to come from a woman who came from far away, and that this child was going to do great things. And when my dad met my mom and she ended up getting pregnant with me, my grandma would tell her that that's that kid and you're that woman. And the doctors were telling my mom, because of my size and my heartbeat, that I was going to be twin girls. But the pastor of that church, and I can't remember his name. I mean, forgive me, it's been almost
Yeah.
40 something years, like, I mean, not that long, because I was in that church up until I was 10 years old. That's when we moved here to Colorado. So it's been 30 years, I guess, since I last was there, and I can't remember his name. It's been so long ago and so much has happened. But the pastor and my grandma, they kept telling my mom that that's that child and it's going to be a boy. It's a special boy. And my grandma once told my mom that she had a dream about, she was like in heaven. She heard all this beautiful music and stuff, and she was outside the gates, and there was this angels flying around. Well, this one angel flew in her lap and painted a picture for her, and she believed that that was me. And so, anyways, come my birthday, and I'm a Scorpio, so I mean, I don't know if I really want to give the actual date out here, but
We
let's
don't.
just say that on my birthday, of course, I was 10 pounds 9 ounces. I was the biggest baby born in Garden City, Kansas that year. I got the record for it. And sure enough, I was a baby boy, despite the doctors and stuff having told my mom I was going to be twin girls throughout this entire pregnancy. So that's just a little fun fact on the side there, because I feel like that was special to me in my journey.
I like that story.
And granted, I didn't get that story. I didn't receive it from my mom until I was 19. And this is after she had went through her cancer and everything. And maybe that's why she felt the need to tell me that, instead
Yeah.
of, but anyways, so we leave Kansas. We come here when I was 10. Um, my dad cheated on my mom. They separated. A lot of things happened. I almost thought my mom was going to leave us there because she was so stressed out, so overwhelmed. And a lot of things happened at the time. And
Well, there was four of you, right?
yeah, and so a lot of things happened. I mean, really, a lot of things happened. Um, it was around the time when I started to lose my faith, was when my mom got cancer. So this was leading up to it, because I was very strong in my faith at the time. But
Hmm.
when my parents separated and all of these things happened, and we ended up having to move to Brush, Colorado, with a friend of my mom's, and we stayed in her house. And her brother-in-law, super racist, super hateful, and us being Asian, really hateful towards us, calling us racial names and stuff. And one time, he was throwing rocks, dirt clod rocks, at my sister. And I was 10, she was 6. Okay, so he's teaching his daughter to do it. And I stood up to him and I told him, that ain't right. You shouldn't be doing things like that. And you shouldn't be throwing rocks at my sister. And this guy threw me on the ground. He beat me up, kicking me in the ribs and stuff. The cops were called.
A
And I
grown
mean,
man, a 10-year-old boy.
it's important because we got moved to a safe house because of it. He threatened to kill our whole family.
Wow.
Uh, I don't know how many people in my life really know that I had to grow up for a time period in a safe house. We weren't allowed to tell anyone where we lived and things of that nature, because you're under protection. Usually it's for women who've been battered, but in this instance, we got moved there because of me, because I got beat up.
Oh,
And
I've known you for a long, long time, and I've never known that.
I don't know, some of the things I really don't talk about, I guess. Like when I moved here to Colorado, to Denver, I should say, I saw it as a fresh start. I saw it as that I don't have to be that person I've always been my whole life, and I could
Yeah.
reinvent myself. And so a lot of things in my past, which has hurt me in my spiritual growth. For
Mhm.
me to have to start to learn only within the last few years addressing certain issues, certain things that have happened to me. I mean, also around this time, and again, like I said, a lot of things happened at the time. You know, I got molested by a girl that lived in that town. When my dad, because of the separation and stuff, then we had to stay every other weekend with my dad and summers with my dad. And so when we were staying with him, this girl would come over, and my brother was aware of it. He would cry when it would happen because he knew how much it bothered me. And I'm only comfortable talking about this now because only in the last 3 years have I really addressed it publicly. I even gave a testimony at Platte Valley Baptist Church in front of the whole congregation about it. Obviously, don't want to say this person's name, and because I don't want to ruin them more, despite what it's done to me. You
Mhm.
know what I mean? It really has affected me in ways I can't even still comprehend yet. Still dealing with a lot of things, but addressing it, accepting it, and admitting it, those are the first steps to me being able to finally heal from it.
Absolutely.
Um, so all of those things, and then to come to find out when you're 16 and your mom tells you that she had cancer because she had a doctor's appointment the week prior and she wouldn't tell me what it was about. It really had me nervous and stuff because, you know, let me step back for a second. When my dad left us at first, I was a daddy's kid, right? Growing up, I always wanted to be around my dad. And when he left us, I wanted to go with him and he sat me down. He said, "You can't go with me. From this moment forward, you're the man of the house. I need you to stay here to watch your siblings for your mom." So that put a lot of responsibility on me as a child, right?
Yeah, 10 years old.
And
That's
I
heavy.
mean, even before that, like I got abused at 3 years old from the babysitter. And I remember, funny thing, I can remember back to when I was 3 years old. You know, I listened to Terrence Howard on Joe Rogan recently. He talks about his first memories being in the womb and he's saying how many people can remember that. For me, I can remember back to when I was 3, maybe even 2 years old. I drew my first picture at 3. I remember my babysitters and all of these memories of how their kids stole our toys from us when our parents would drop us off, how they'd hit us and stuff like that. And at first, of course, because you're a child, your parents have a hard time believing it because they want to trust it because this was their friends that they knew through work. And I came home one day with like that much of a cut down my nose, and that's when they realized that we were telling the truth. And
Yeah.
my mom really didn't want to leave us with anybody after that. So they
Hard.
either had to switch their schedules to be there with us, or I had to start watching us
Mhm.
at a young age, and watching all the kids. Things that traumatized me. You know what I mean? Like we were in Nashville, okay, because I grew up in Kansas, so I'm from also the era where we were still doing drills for nuclear bombs for Cold War stuff, and they were teaching us about things of that nature, like get under your desk, put your head between your knees, and put your hands over your head. Right? That's what they would teach us for if the the sirens would go off, the bomb sirens. So that triggers me when I hear those sirens, even like in the movie Silent Hill and stuff. That triggers me. And we were in Nashville sleeping in a dead sleep, and there was a. It ended up being a fire truck, a party fire truck, but this truck was doing the tornado sirens. And I flipped out and I jumped up out of the bed and I'm like, babe, get up, Lisa, get up. We're at sea level. They have tornadoes down here and it's probably a tornado going on. And I opened the blinds and I look and then I seen what it was. And she's like, geez, you must have PTSD. She's like, it definitely seems like it. That shit messed you up. I remember one time when I was 10 years old, 7 tornadoes touched in Dodge City, Kansas, where we lived. And my parents were out for a dinner. They didn't get to do it much. And I was responsible for the kids. Well, I was fucking scared. And I remember I put them all 3 in the bathtub and I freaking put pillows over their head and some blankets over their heads. And I sat in the hallway and cried till my parents got home because I was so scared and I didn't know what was going to happen, what to do. I just wanted to make sure they were okay. And so, I mean, going back to when I wanted to leave with my dad and he told me I had to stay. So all of these things transpired between me getting beat up, us ending up in a safe house, me having had been molested. Then at 16, my mom telling me from this doctor's appointment, you know, I have cancer. I was like, I knew it. I knew it. I was angry and I left.
Know it. What was it that you knew? Like, did you just have an intuition about it, or
I had a feeling like, so since I was a child, I've had a gut instinct, you know, like you said, an intuition. At the time, I called it a gut instinct. And I've had repetitive dreams. There's something that I know about myself. I know it's hard for people to believe, but I know that I have to sacrifice me, myself, my things in the end for things to work out. And I don't know how I know that, but I know that. And I've known it since I was a child. And I've had 3 dreams throughout my life about it. It's just something that is in me. I just know it. So when I try not to have attachments, for those of you who know me, when I don't get as attached as I probably should, this is the reason why. Because something in me is telling me that in order for me to be able to let go and make the sacrifice I have to, can't be attached to things. And I know that sucks. You know, you and I have talked about this before, Rich, that certain people have certain journeys, right? Many are called, but few answer. And for me, I don't know why, what it is that I got called to this. And we've talked about it. And I feel like sometimes that maybe it's because I can endure and I have the strength to endure. And that's why I have to, so that others don't have to. Right. And I feel like that's why my journey is the way that it has become.
that kind of takes me to this place to where, my whole life I've always heard that phrase, God only gives his toughest battles to his strongest soldiers. And that's what it makes me think of. And I know, like you said, we've had these conversations before because I kind of have a similar type of feeling and vibe, and have since I was young as well. And we've discussed about how these vibes kind of have stuck with us throughout the course of our lives and kind of helped shape us into the men that we've become. And me knowing you and seeing from the outside how convicted you are with all of your beliefs since I've first met you. It just kind of goes to show how strong you are, and your individuality. You're not afraid to stand up, even if you're the only one standing. And I've always admired that about you. You know what I mean? So to get back to your childhood and forming into more adolescence, and when you started to lose faith, can we get into that and why you felt this need? Because I feel like there's a parallel here with how you had to stand strong, and when you
So
start to kind of maybe lose faith in other areas.
that's where I started to lose my faith. Is when my mom had told me that she had cancer. Okay. And so I left. I went to work. I was angry, angry, and I just kept thinking to myself, why? Why does this have to keep happening to us? You know, we moved out here to Colorado to have a better life. My dad left us with nothing, and my mom, you know, she struggled, and then to have to go through all the things that we did on the in betweens and everything that happened, and then my mom telling me she has cancer at 16 and the doctors are telling her she won't live to see me graduate. And she made me promise her not to tell my siblings. So for freaking 8 months, I had to carry that. 8 months almost
That's a long time
by myself.
just dealing with it. How did you do it?
Started to hate God. That's how. And I mean that. Like I was hateful. That's why like now I can say how blasphemous I was and realize it. And that's what brought my love back to it, right? Is understanding these trials I had to go through and the way I was, and understanding the way that things had to play out a certain way for me to come back the way that I did, to embrace things the way that I did wholeheartedly, right? Instead of holding up a guard or whatever like people do. That's why they don't get the full effect of faith, right? People hold up their guards with it because of how people make faith appear. And again, I've said this before, I have no issues with faith. There's nothing wrong with faith in any type of belief system. What is wrong with faith is not the faith, but religious institutions that have agendas that promote the faith, or people who claim to promote the faith but act out as a person. Those are the two things that ruin faith. Okay. It's not faith. Faith, any of that belief systems, having any type of spirituality, belief in something good. Okay. That's not what's wrong. It's who represents it is what makes it wrong. Right. It's that turns people off to it. So people hold up their guard. So again, I started to go down this dark path. I've read the Satanic Bible a few times. At the time, it's not because I was trying to become a Satanist. I started to view the world as, and I grew up in a Baptist belief system. So I started to view this world as, well, there's God and there's the devil. I always liked Malcolm X, right? And he said, know thy enemy. And I know that's in the scripture too, but he said, when you read materials and stuff from the people that you perceive as your enemy, and you try to understand it from that basis, then it's like having a strategy, like an art of war, like Sun Tzu's art of war, understanding what you're dealing with and how to combat back with it. So I went down this dark, dark road, ended up losing my faith completely. Brandon and we started practicing Taoism, Buddhism. I stepped away from that when Antone, who was actually our first guest on the Drobro show,
Mm-hmm.
Molly, and Brandon, we were all supposed to go see the Dalai Lama, but when we found out it was $350 a seat, that's when I started to really lose respect because I was like, well, aren't Buddhists not supposed to beg? And how are you going to ask for that amount of money to come see you? Really? I mean, if you're trying to spread a message, like to me, I was just so blown away by it. So that led
Howard,
me down becoming more I don't want to say atheist. What's the word for it? Where it's not that you don't believe in God, it's that you don't want to believe in
like agnostic.
more like that, I guess. And led me down the path of ancient alien theory.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like I was meant to go on this journey because I've been told many times that I have a way of connecting all the dots, every story, every culture that people weren't aware of. And I feel like that was my journey. That's why I had to go through this cycle so that I could see the bigger picture, so I could understand it. And,
You do have this thing about you, and I've told you this a few times where um we've had situations in our friendship where I sometimes I felt like I was your grandchild and you were my Asian grandfather just teaching me all these proverbs and lessons in life. You know what I'm saying? And like you have this quality about you because you're so thirsty for knowledge that it kind of oozes out of you sometimes, and you can't help but like teach and try to help explain and all of these things. And honestly, like throughout our the course of our friendship, that has kind of evolved because like we discussed before, you were a bit more aggressive with your thought process and the way you would come across before. And nowadays, like honestly, like I feel like I could listen to you talk about a lot of things for hours sometimes because you're so very well spoken, but you also, like you said, pull from a lot of different areas, and it's a wide range of knowledge, like a good general knowledge that you bring to the table here, which benefits us as partners in all of our shows because it's a nice contrast to go off of. But as far as you as a person, it makes it awesome for me being the listener to you or the person that's learning because you're so thorough with your interpretations of things. So I appreciate that of you. You know what I mean? And I think it's kind of worked for you your whole life.
and I do cherish your friendship. I always have. And anyone out there that I am friends with that I may not be around as much, I do cherish it. It's helped me grow and experience in a lot of ways. But as I get older in my years, and like I said at the beginning, is that there's a lot that held up my journey. It's a lot of the stuff that I'm dealing with now, and sometimes a lot of that stuff, it needs introspection. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
it needs to not have the noise from others around you,
Mm-hmm.
people in your life, and distractions, so that I can heal, so I could be the better me, so that I could love people better, right? Because that's what it's all about. And
I love it. And the self-awareness that that takes to get to that place, it takes quite a bit, you know, and that kind of speaks for itself also. So just to kind of piggyback just for a second, when you were going on your journey at this time in your life and you were learning about different faiths, was there um anything that made you feel as though something was like wrong in the way about I don't know how I want to phrase this because, like, we've already discussed about how organized religion, how man tends to ruin things, and they put all these weird, invisible standards a lot of times and whatnot, and it kind of changes the way we practice or worship or whatever. So, like, when you had mentioned the Dalai Lama, but what else in other sects or other religions maybe did you notice where there was something amiss and it just kind of rubbed you the wrong way as far as being a believer goes?
well, and I feel like it's all religions, you know what I mean? But going back to that, so I've had friends that were Muslim, you know, I love them as people. But when you look at some of the things in the faith, and I'm not trying to say anything negative about the faith, I'm just saying that when you look at these things, something about it just doesn't resonate with me, right? Some of the more negative things, and this goes with any faith, right? Is that I feel we're here to spiritually grow and develop ourselves so that we could be better people to those around us. Recently, again, I've mentioned this. I was listening to Terrence Howard on Joe Rogan, and he said something in it, a couple things that I might bring up in here. So the first thing is that he said, "What if instead of everybody trying to act like everything's in God's hands, what if for one day every single person on the planet lived their life as if they were Jesus? They did the things they thought the Messiah would do, and they lived an entire day the way they thought the Messiah would have. Imagine how different the world would be."
Hmm.
You know what I mean? And I'm not trying to be blasphemous with that statement. What I'm trying to say is, you've seen the bracelets. What would Jesus do?
Hmm.
Right? Why not go out in the world and live a life like that? Be righteous and do the things that you feel would be, that's unconditional love. Okay,
Hmm.
selflessness. It's when you're making the decisions regardless of how others feel, but it's for the benefit of everything, right? That's unconditional love, is understanding that and being able to take that step back. And it's hard for all of us. Okay, we all have this journey, but we're human, and it's a beautiful thing to be human. So before anybody wants to judge on the fact that I vape, smoking on a cart, I'm a human too.
Hmm.
We That's what makes us live. And I'm not trying to justify the things I do. I'm just saying that our physical being, it craves the things of this world. And I'm not saying that I'm overindulging, or I'm not trying to justify indulgence of any kind. I'm just saying that to be a human, that's a beautiful thing, right? To not try to portray yourself as something perfect, because you're not. None of us are. That's the journey. Each and every one of us are on it. And that's why I think that the show that we want to do is going to be so great. And it's talking about everyone's path and how we come to these conclusions of our own spiritual growth, right? I mean, I've discussed it before where I do feel like it's not that I have anything against church. It's just I feel that the journey is our own. It is meant for our own discernment, for us to learn within ourselves, right? It's not about us forcing other people to believe what we believe. or to understand the way that we do. Because see, I like that you brought that up, that I was a little bit more aggressive and forceful when I was younger. And coming back to the faith, that was something I had to understand, that when I said that I understood how I was blasphemous, how I was very negative towards this faith that actually brought me good feelings. It brought me what I knew to be love and those kind of emotions. Um, fuck, I just lost my train of thought. Sorry. But when I thought about the faith like that, um, it's like having the cure for cancer, and you want to give it to everyone, but not everyone's willing to receive it. And there was at Platte Valley a week where we did, we had evangelists come and things like that, and they had meals, and church went for 5 nights. And one of them had told me that's why we were called fishers of men, right? Is that you're not meant to go out there and save people. You're not God, you're not the Messiah. You can't do that. You're just there to plant seeds. You're just there to help nurture as you see these seeds begin to sprout and help encourage it along. That's all you're there for.
Mm.
And without judgment, without anything. So all of this, and again, where I am with my spirituality. I am still a believer, although I still practice in esoteric and occult knowledge. I know that's frowned upon in Western faiths, but it's helped give me an understanding and other sides and added parts to the stories to help me understand the bigger picture and actually see the connectivity of all of it.
We're
And
I was going to say we're coming up on just over a half hour now of our interview, so I want to make sure we get into that. So give me a little bit about when that transition occurred for you, as far as your esoteric and your studies of that type of knowledge, and when that started affecting your faith, and when things started to change. Give me a little bit about that.
so the main thing is that this whole growth is for me to get closer to God, to source, okay? And I reference him as source because we're all fractal pieces of that, okay? So I've said this to you before over the phone, is that the the best explanation of the macrocosm and the microcosm, which is what is outside of you is you, is that you are not a drop of the ocean, but the entire ocean in a drop.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? So think about that, is that if the ocean would be source, would be God, each of us are droplets of that, not just us. What we call the messengers, the Malakia, right? Um, the angels in transliteration, because it came from the Greek word angelos, which meant messenger, but was translated to angels. But everything that exists here, and I've spoken to you about this, I feel that everything everywhere all at once, just like we did the movie review, that is God, that's source. Every moment is experiencing that. And to be a conscious individual, see, with great power comes great responsibility. And what made us different when we were created on this planet, what makes us different, and I'm not trying to say we're better than everything else on the planet, but what gave us that ability is that we can say I, and we understand what I means. That means our conscious, our physical body, and our spiritual. Because we are not just this one physical being, we are manipulated by our spirit, okay, which is connected to God's source. Um, so when we can say I and we understand that, but we're consciously aware of it, not asleep. And I don't mean like falling asleep when you go to bed. I mean like when you become in a mundane routine, like work, or you're just doing the things that you would normally do, that you fall asleep in your mind. You're not consciously aware, you're in a reactive mind state, which makes you more like an animal. At that point, no, you're not better than anything on the planet, because we were given dominion over all these things, because we have this responsibility to our brothers and sisters, the planet, the animals, everything. And so what led me down the path, obviously, I've mentioned it before in our other show and other shows, is that I had a friend who was transitioned, and you know, with people of the church and things of that nature, let's just say, made me feel guilty for wanting to be supportive of that person, and trying to take in that, wow, this, it must have been hard for this person, knowing that I was a person of faith. I was going to church at the time, uh, 5 days a week, 7 times a week, because I'd go twice on a couple days, right? And I was really involved. And you had asked me what changed in that. So that made me feel a certain way, and it made me feel wrong. Not that I lost faith, I did. It actually made my faith stronger, and it made my relationship closer. It doesn't have to be other people's relationship. Like I said, this is our own journey. So my journey, my connection has become closer to God, to source, and maybe one day I'll talk about it at some point. But I've had recognition in ways that I know that I'm on that right path. And I prayed and prayed before joining an order, that I would attain other types of knowledge, that, like I've told you before, by willfully accepting Masonic knowledge, I can't take communion, or uh, I can't do any of the, can't think of the words right now.
Can't partake in any
Confession, any of,
sacrament, anything like that.
yeah, nothing in the
Yeah.
Catholic Church, because I've willfully accepted Masonic knowledge.
Mm.
I know that that rubbed you the wrong way, but also understand that that's what I'm talking about, is
Mm.
that it's the religions, the agendas behind the faith, that make it in a negative light for people in their eyes, right? Is that,
Yeah.
why is it bad to attain other knowledge that gives me stories that help build the bigger picture, right?
Yeah.
And you listen to people like Billy Carson. He's connecting these stories from ancient times, from Sumeria, from Egypt and stuff, to the Hebrew scriptures, and telling you who these people are by different names. Okay. And I believe that every faith out there is truth, but there's aspects of it that have been hidden away so that we don't understand the whole story, right? And all faiths are devised for what they're meant to be, for us to have hope, us not to question. Remember, we live in a physical world. This world, we battle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities
Yeah.
and evil spirits. Okay. This world has been corrupted. So, look, the eyes to see is to be manipulated. We have other senses. These other senses connect us to the spiritual world and source around us. You just feel there's a vibrational resonance around you. That is God around you, hugging you, like part of you, if you will, right? I could feel it. I could feel the energy. I mean, I've always been able to. So again, what you're saying, like I said, it was a gut instinct, and I know it now as intuition, and that's how I refer to it. But I know, when I was 19, this is over 20 years ago, I would tell you that I could feel the trees. I could feel their energy. And even if I put my hand out to you, I could feel your life essence. Like I could just grab it and squeeze it and take it away, right? That's how much I could feel it. Not saying that's what I could do. I'm saying that's what I could feel. And I don't know, maybe I'm just attuned to these senses at a higher level. I don't know. And I get it. Like I try to talk to people. It's made my journey very hard because I always seem like I'm an outcast. I'm weird. I'm this, that, whatever. I feel like it's hard for people to follow me because I used to have an understanding that I thought whatever I could understand, other people could exactly the same way I could. And that was a learning curve for me to really understand that we perceive things so differently. Everyone does. And again, perception. We are limited to our own perception and understanding. All of this was taught to us. Even the Messiah said, all that you seek is within you. So I know that the more you're seeking outside of yourself, that's why I say the introspection and being involved within yourself, right? All the tools you need are here. You were given everything you needed. And so I don't feel, it's not that the knowledge is hurtful. I feel like understanding that knowledge gives you an understanding because we are both physical and spiritual. So the introspection is for my spirit to connect with this physical being. This physical being learns knowledge in this world so that I can help understand and resonate with my spiritual being so that I can become the one and be connected to source. Because what intuition is your spiritual self talking to you. Intuition is connected to spirit, which is connected to God, which is source. So when you listen to your conscious mind, that's connected to this physical body. And this physical body is still connected to this world. So if you have a conscious decision or an intuitive decision, always go with that intuitive because that's your spirit talking to you.
That's some heavy stuff, my brother, and I love it. I always appreciate the insights that you give and all of that. I have to ask you respectfully, though, if we could cut this my prior obligations here, so maybe we can make this a part one, and
Yeah, I'm down with that.
we could come back for part two and get the remainder of your transition there. And then I also had a few other things I wanted to get into. We got lots more to talk about as far as our fandoms go and as far as our different types of things that we're into and what brought us together. So I would love to get a part two from you if that's okay with you. Is that all right?
Yeah, yeah, whenever.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you, my brother. I love you so much. Thank you for opening up and sharing some of that story with us. It was amazing of you, and I'm forever grateful for that. I apologize that I have to cut it short, but I love you very much. And to everybody that's been listening, this is, like I said, been part one. We'll be back next week with part two with Delaine, and we're going to get into a lot more about his faith, about his fandoms, about some of our other shows and projects we have coming up. So thank you all for tuning in. Thank you, my brother, for sharing some of that with us. And much love to everybody. Have a
Yep.
great rest of your evening.
God bless.
For more reviews, shorts, and interviews from the Vicious Network, check out The Vicious One on YouTube. That's TH.